Bite marks were his masterpiece when he could not regulate himself, mostly from frustration. At times, he would also scream, bang his head, and roll on the floor.
Okay?
Come, let's go, man.
Okay? Let's go home, okay?
These are clips shared by parents of children with special needs. The scenes that we saw earlier are events that play out regularly, sometimes on a daily basis. Tonight, I want to find out if we are giving enough support to children with special needs, and can we do more to help their caregivers? Falani, you are a father to an autistic 4-year-old boy.
That's right.
Dr. Lim, 2 of your children have autism, with one of them having ADHD as well. How familiar are those scenes that we saw earlier?
Well, those scenes are actually very familiar. Yeah, meltdowns are actually like a daily routine of his life. It's how he sometimes communicates to us what's upsetting him and things like that, you see. Yeah, so it is very familiar to me.
Tell me about something that you have had to witness, the worst thing that you have had to witness.
I guess I must say the so-called the worst thing I would say is when in the beginning stages where I saw him going into a meltdown and he start hurting himself, scratching himself. That as a parent, for you to witness that is really heartbreaking, you know. And you feel helpless because you don't know what to do or how to help them. You get what I mean? Yeah.
How badly did he scratch himself?
It can get quite bad, especially when he's on a full-blown like meltdown and frustration. It can get quite bad when he hurts himself. So yeah, that's truly heartbreaking to see as a parent.
How did it make you feel? I mean, what did you want to do?
Of course, the instantaneous thing for a parent to do is you just want to embrace your child. You just want to just make sure to know that he is safe. He's in a safe space. You know, you are his shoulder to cry on. You know, as parents, we want to be that for our kids. Yeah.
Dr. Lim, what about yourself? Were those scenes familiar to you?
Yes, actually very familiar. I have 3 kids, right? The oldest is already 19, youngest is 11. When they were in their preschool years, these are like, I see them all the time, be it at home, sometimes even in public places. So every time they have this kind of meltdown, I try my best to manage and stay calm in the day and get them to settle down. But at night, I will have my own mini meltdown because I will feel doubt, I will feel guilt, I will feel that I'm not good enough, and I grieve over it myself. So this is very common, yeah.
Is it important to grieve?
It is important to grieve because when you don't grieve, you cover it, you don't look at the problem and learn from it. So it's important to sometimes let it out, sometimes cry or talk to someone you know, and after that you process. Only when your emotions is taken care of, then you can think properly. So
Dr.
it's important.
Dr. Sanvin, what kind of impact, what you're hearing, what kind of impact does it have on the caregivers?
Grief is one. A lot of parents would describe things like feeling a lot of shame, a lot of anger. It could be directed at themselves, it could be directed at others, sadness, anxiety. Basically, it impacts the mental health of a caregiver, and it also impacts their ability to, or the capacities that they have to function in other roles that they may have, apart from just being a parent.
Okay. Falani, how does it make you feel, what you go through, how does it make you feel towards your child?
How do I feel towards my child? I mean, it is sad for a parent to witness all this.
Are you ever angry that you put me through this? Were you ever?
Yes, definitely. There's a ball of emotions that goes through a parent when you witness this. You know, it's like you start doubting yourself, start questioning yourself. Anger comes in, sadness comes in. But like what she mentioned, the grieving process is very, very important, both for the mom and dad, because once you grieve, then only then you can start doing the hard work. You can start embracing your child and that is very important. Which that point is embracing your child with autism. Yeah.
Dr. Lim, you see a lot of caregivers in your line of work. What are some of the top issues that they come to you with?
Well, obviously the most common problem they have is how can I help my child better? What are the therapy? What are the treatment? What are the things that I should do with my child to help them to improve? However, I feel that there's an irony here because often when they come to me, what I see is a burnout mom or burnout dad. And to me, the top issue that here when they come to me is you got to take care of yourself first. Maybe they have to think about their expectations and adjust it. Some of them over therapy, put too much therapy on the child and they get all stressed up with all the routines and logistics. Some of them really have to take a step back and then think through how can I take care of myself so that I can think clearly and make rational decisions for my child.
Did you ever get burnout?
Oh, definitely. There was a time in my life when they were both young, or rather 3 of my kids were young. I was so tired, that I literally crawl into my bedroom and into my bed. And I wish that I will never have to wake up again. But of course, the next day I have to wake up and take care of my loved ones.
Okay.
So it's tough.
Dr. Sanveen, I want to ask you that for a parent like Dr. Lim, she was able to spot her warning signs, her burnout signs. What can the general public, the community, how can we help to spot these signs?
Well, first of all, it's noticing a shift in your behavior. Are you starting to have a lower tolerance for distress? So maybe previously you had a wider range of tolerance and things won't irritate you or frustrate you as easily. For the most part, parents will describe shifts in their levels of frustration. As human beings, we want to assert control. And when we can't assert control, we find ways to do so. So we might either internalize or externalize our behavior, so we get very sad. We might notice shifts in behavior patterns, isolating yourself from loved ones, isolating yourself from friends because you're too tired to go do anything else, complaints about physical aches and pains, or even unhealthy coping mechanisms, drinking more.
Hang on to your thought. We need to take a short break right now. But coming up, I also want to talk about the range of services and support that are given to these special needs children as well as their caregivers. Welcome back to this special edition of Talking Point. We've been talking about the struggles faced by caregivers of children with special needs. Falani, do you feel that your 4-year-old boy is getting the support he needs to fulfill his potential?
No, honestly, I feel that it's insufficient because for starters, education system here is really a struggle for an autistic kid. Because personally, for me, my experience, my son has went through a lot of rejections from schools. One fine example is I've gotten a reply from school before that they said that, oh, sure, your son can enter to our school, but he can't make noise, disrupt the class, can't move around, can't move about. And I'm like, that's basically what traits of what makes a trait of an autistic kid is.
This was a childcare center.
School, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a normal school.
And how did you feel when you saw that?
Of course, I feel sad as a parent because at 4 years old and he's already getting so many rejections. Can you only imagine if he goes to primary school, secondary school, and into the workforce? How much struggle it will be for him.
Well, why is that happening, Dr. Sanveen or Dr. Lin? There is a wait list. We have 20 schools for special needs education. Is there a wait list and why, Dr. Lim?
I think when we look at support for children with special needs, we have to understand that there are actually 2 periods. There's the preschool period where it's up to 7 years old, where we look at early intervention programs. And then there are special schools from 7 to maybe 18. So if you talk about early intervention program, yes, there is a wait list. And I think it's really because there's so many kids being diagnosed with special needs nowadays. And the system is really trying to keep up with it by having more early intervention centers. And also, when we think about early intervention, we must also think about inclusive preschool. So a lot of the programs now is actually focusing on how to include the children in the mainstream schools. So I would say it's an evolving system in the early childhood sector. But when it comes to 7 to 18 years old, that's about special education period, right? there isn't a wait list because because of Compulsory Education Act, every child get to go to a school in Singapore. Maybe some of the special schools, if parents are very particular about which school they want to go to, maybe there's a bit of wait time. So the system is a little bit different. Why is it not enough? I think really we need more teachers. We need more teachers who are trained in early intervention. We need more teachers who are trained in special education.
How are we going to get more teachers?
We just have to get more people who cares about children to help the children with special needs.
Okay. Dr. Sanveen, I want to ask you what we are hearing, the stress of getting your child into a school when we know that early intervention is important for a special needs child as well. What kind of impact does that have on the caregiver?
So with the example that you gave, I think the term disenchanted grief comes to mind, and this is when society invalidates our grief. For the most part, society has very clear, fixed structures about grief, what you can grieve about, how you can grieve, how long you can grieve. Society doesn't provide much grace in terms of grieving, where you said my child can't get into a particular type of school. So what then happens is that parents end up having prolonged grief because they can't go to people and talk about things. They often feel that they're complaining about their children, and as a result that they feel quite a fair bit of shame. And this then results in them feeling very isolated and compounded emotional pain. So
do you feel that, Falani? Do you feel isolated? Do you feel that if you share, people will think that you're complaining?
Yeah, I do. At times, both my wife and I, we feel lonely at times, especially if you get constant rejections. It's a struggle for us as caregivers and also for our son. Yeah.
Dr. Lim, what advice would you give? Your kids are a little bit older than Falani's. What advice would you give to Falani now?
Look out for other same parents, parents with special needs as well, and form a community. There is a phrase that says, raising a child takes a village, right?
Yeah.
But if you raise a special needs child, you need a whole country. So you really need to look for friends and family members who care for you and is able to understand you, to support you. And of course, for all the therapy and all the treatment, we also have to be quite discerning. What are the things that can help my child? Because if this therapy worked for one child, it may not work for my child. So sometimes we need to talk to trusted therapists or trusted teachers to understand our child so that we can plan the intervention for our children.
I suppose to me, as a parent, to me I call it intelligent parenting, because my child is different. I need to do my research. There's no one size fits all as well. And I like what you talk. It doesn't take a village. It takes a whole country. And that is something that I would love to get into later on. And that is what is you and I what can we do? But first, I want to know that why is it that we've had over 10 years of national efforts to empower and enable people with special needs? Why do we still get these challenges? Dr. Sanveen.
Well, I think one is, as Dr. Lim shared, the numbers are growing. And the numbers are growing not because the prevalence of special needs is increasing, but because look, with certain conditions, we haven't identified genetic markers. We identified a whole bunch of them, but we don't know what's causing them. And as a result of that, we're learning things on a daily basis. Research has shared so much over the years, and it has helped parents identify when their child needs to be assessed. So more people are coming forth and getting evaluated. And we're also having more, I would say, stringent or more accurate assessment processes. So professionals are picking up the challenges much earlier. So as a result of that, the numbers are growing, and I think communities are responding. Also, there are different types of special needs. Each child with special needs has different needs, and as a result of that, the type of supports that different children need vary from individual to individual.
Dr. Lim, the parents are closest to the kids in every possible way. Do you think parents are adequately equipped to manage their kids?
I think at the moment, parents are not getting enough help to teach them or to help them to handle the children outside school period. A lot of the efforts now is focused on helping the children in a school setting, but the parents have to deal with the child for the rest of the time. But there are still a paucity of parents training or empowerment programs, I think, currently in Singapore compared to overseas. So I would really hope to see more parents training and parents education kind of programs going forward, which is why I start Caring SG, which is a charity that helps caregivers. And we are trying to help parents to be in touch with evidence-based practices and also empower them with critical knowledge and skills for effective caregiving.
So institutionalized learning, it remains a big part of the learning for these kids. Would you know how long is the wait list?
Again, it depends on the age group. So with early intervention, it's about 9 months right now. With mainstream schools, because of the inclusive program, children do get in. But then the question then becomes whether you're in a school that adequately supports your child. So for example, for autism, if you want to access a school that provides mainstream education, so your child sits with the PSLEs, they have the same opportunities as everybody else, but the curriculum is taught in a manner that your child will be able to readily take it on. There's one school in all of Singapore.
How long can it be? How many months will that be? 9 months, 6 months?
From what I know, they're trying to increase the number of autism-specific schools. I think now 2 or 3 schools, and they're building it. When I was waiting for my children to get into the autism-specific school, I had to wait about 1 year.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
But in the meantime, he's getting support in a mainstream school. Yeah.
Okay. So it seems that from talking to parents, the wait list is not the only issue that they are facing. Let's take a look at this video.
We struggle in the middle because usually all this money that is given to, all this help, so-called financially, to the families are for the lower income families. So we are kind of stuck in between.
Most caregivers, they have to stop work to care for their special needs child. So we need to bring them maybe to school, early intervention, different strategies, occupational therapy, speech therapy, etc. So for those caregivers who are not working, there is financial pressure on one party.
Falani, how much does it cost to raise a child with special needs?
It can range between 1,000 plus to 2,000. Yeah, on education alone, and we have not even touched on things like logistics, transportation. Yeah.
What are the other costs involved?
Well, as the parent mentioned in the video, there is often therapy involved as well. And then sometimes they also need certain treatment. So some children may need, because when we talk about special needs, it's not just autism, right? There are also children who has very complicated medical issues. Then some of them even need to buy ventilators. Ventilators are maybe
Dr. Lim,
10,000.
you have 2. What was the highest amount that you had to pay?
I have to confess, I'm in some way a tiger mom. In whatever ways that I can do to help my child, I put it in.
Okay.
So at one point it was 4,000 to 5,000 a month
Per child?
Per child,
But we
yes.
know that there are grants and assistance schemes. Are those not enough?
Well, some of the grants are pegged to monthly family incomes, and I don't think they're enough because the range of services that a child may need may exceed the grants. A lot of the grants are targeted towards education. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
We need to go for another break, but when we come back, let's find out how we as a community, what more we can do to support the children and their families. Welcome back to this special edition of Talking Point. Before the break, we had been talking about the gaps in the supports and services given to children with special needs. Dr. Sanveen, you had mentioned that many of the grants and financial assistance schemes are targeted at education. What else is needed?
Well, support for therapy at the moment, financial support is only available if you go down the subsidized scheme through the government hospitals, but support is not given for families that are accessing the same supports privately, bearing in mind that the wait lists, again, are very long if you might be seeking therapy through the subsidized schemes. So that's one arm. And then the second arm is looking at supporting the family cohesively, so social supports, ensuring that the family is able to provide and also care for themselves. So domestic helpers, looking at workplaces as well to see if employers or businesses...
Employers can afford to be a lot more understanding.
Yeah.
I want to go back to a point you mentioned earlier, and that 2 of your children were waiting for a spot in a special needs school, and you had to wait 1 year for that. What was the impact on the children's learning, firstly, and the impact on yourself?
Well, in the first place, when they need to be transferred to a special school, is because they're already struggling in mainstream school. So they have to struggle for the additional 1 year. So it was a time of great anxiety and a time of great stress for me, because in that 1 year, I will have to support my child and continue to support the teachers in the mainstream schools to handle him or her. So yeah, the wait time is stressful. Yeah.
Okay. I want to, we are running out of time, so I want to ask quickly, you had mentioned that it takes a country to raise these children. What can we do? What can we do? How can we make it easier for you, Falani?
I guess first and foremost, I find that the awareness has to be asserted. Like it starts with us as parents, as caregivers. You need to educate your child in what in special needs kids. Why are they behaving a certain way? Why are autistic kids have these certain characters? It starts with us. If you are able to educate your child, then I think this is the generation to change the I guess the aspect and change the.
Dr. Sandin, a quick tip from you. How should we behave?
Well, base of education efforts, I think educating a society, educating people on what autism is, what are the different types of special needs, how do you interact with a child, what do you not do, you know? So a lot of times if there's a tantrum, people turn and look at the parents are already struggling. They're having a hard time regulating
So how should
the
we
child.
react? I mean, it is natural sometimes to turn around out of curiosity. What should we do?
Well, I think, you know, if you turn around once, that's fine, but oftentimes there are long glares or there are comments that are being made or their size. So taking cue from what's happening around you, a lot of times the environment can be quite triggering as well.
Dr. Lim, a last tip from you, something concrete that I can use, a strategy. We're running out of time.
I think the most important thing is to observe what the child or the caregiver needs at that point of time, and not ask too many questions, but maybe just simply one question: how can I help? And
that is fantastic.
Yeah.
Be open, stay open. How can I help? How can I help? Thank you for your sharing. We hope that we've provided you some insights so that we can continue to support children with special needs and their caregivers. Good night.